In his appearance on Top Gear, Rowan Atkinson drove like a racing driver on his celebrity lap around the show's track, which showed how much he loves cars. A lot of people know Atkinson for driving a messy Mini Cooper as Mr. Bean. On the other end of the spectrum, Atkinson has driven beautiful cars in movies, including an Aston Martin DB7 Vantage while playing Johnny English, Britain's second most famous spy. Atkinson is really a racer at heart. At tracks like Goodwood, he likes driving old cars, and he often goes to Formula One events. Atkinson's success has let him follow his interest in cars, some of which are very interesting. Here are 10 cars in Rowan Atkinson's expensive car collection. 10. BMW 328 Roadster. Rowan Atkinson is happy to own a BMW 328 Roadster, which was the best race car in the 1930s. The car won several races in 1937, such as the Bucharest Grand Prix and the GP des Frontières. In 1938, the BMW 328 had even more success. It won 2 races at the Nürburgring and the Mille Miglia class. The car's engine may not seem very powerful now, but 80 horsepower was a lot of power back then. In addition, the car was very light because it was made of aluminium. Walt Balmer and Huschke von Hanstein drove a BMW 328 that won the Mille Miglia in 1939. World War II put an end to the 328's reign on the track. Still, it made such a big difference that it is now known as a car legend. 9. Lancia Thema 8.32. The Lancia Thema 8.32 is one of the best sleeper cars of all time. Nothing about it makes you think that it has a Ferrari V8 engine under the hood. The 8.32 Lancia didn't make much sense. It cost more than most of its rivals, and the detuned Ferrari engine couldn't keep up with the BMW M5. Lancia's success in rallying, on the other hand, brought attention to the company and its unusual car. For the 8.32 to handle the power of the V8, it needed gear that wasn't in the theme. It had a better 5-speed gearbox, bigger front brakes, and a retuned suspension. With its wood dashboard and velour seats, the 8.32's interior was very classy. Most of the time, the Lancia 8.32 did better than its competitors, even if it wasn't as fast, quick, or cheap. 8. Honda NSX. In 2002, Honda changed the NSX look to make it more like its famous European competitors. The Japanese company improved the handling and added more space to the front bumper. They also switched out the pop-up headlights for fixed HID lamps. The changes made the Honda NSX go faster, but the better speed wasn't enough to make up for the NSX's poor sales. Honda worked with the famous Formula One driver Ayrton Senna to make the first NSX. Even with the Brazilian maestro's help, the car never hit the performance levels of other supercars. 3 years after a major makeover, Honda gave up on the NSX. 7. 1977 V8 Vantage. The 1977 V8 Vantage looked more like a muscle car than a supercar. Aston Martin called it a Grand Tourer. The V8 Vantage was fast no matter what. Its fastest speed was 170 mph, and it was made possible by a tuned 5.3-liter V8 engine from the Lagonda. With its new input valves, manifolds, plugs, and camshafts, the engine now makes 40% more power. This is the 3rd time Rowan has owned his red Vantage. He bought it in 1984. The star bought a car that drove on the left and changed it so that it drove on the right. Rowan Atkinson's first strange car was the Vantage, which he got a few years after he became famous in Britain. It was in the movie Johnny English Strikes Again by Atkinson. 6. McLaren F1. Rowan Atkinson bought a McLaren F1 with some of the money he made from the hit movie Bean. At the time, it was the fastest production car in the world, and it still is the fastest naturally aspirated car ever made. Murray developed the McLaren F1, which could go as fast as 243 mph, which was fast enough for Atkinson. The McLaren F1 was a rocket ship that tore up the track. It had a 6.1-liter V12 engine that got so hot that the builders had to line the engine bay with gold to reflect the heat. Rowan had 2 times when he couldn't handle the F1. Reports say that his insurance company spent almost £1 million fixing his car after the second accident. Rowan got £8 million for the McLaren F1, which is about £7 million more than what he paid for it. 5. Jaguar MK7. Jaguar made the MK7 as a cheaper luxury car option to Bentley and Rolls-Royce. It was a typical luxury car with a big, round body and lots of metal. The inside was made of wood and leather, and the engine had 160 horsepower. The MK7 was meant to be a luxury car, but Sterling Moss and Mike Hawthorne drove it in touring car races, so it had a racing history. Rowan Atkinson mostly raced with his MK7. The third-place finish was his first in a race, the Sopwith Cup at Goodwood in April 2022. Atkinson said in the interview that followed the race that he thought he could have come in second if it had been longer. During the race, the star praised the car for being reliable. But in 2009, Rowan and his wife were coming home from a date in London when the MK7 caught fire. 4. Ford Falcon. The Ford Falcon did a lot better in racing than it did on the North American market. The suspension was stronger, the sound was louder, and the Sprint package had a V8 engine. But the Sprint wasn't even close to as good as the Mustang, which came with all of the extra features that the Sprint had. Rowan Atkinson bought the Falcon Sprint because it could be used for racing. He changed the car so it would meet RAA racing rules and drove it in several races. During a race in 2014, Atkinson crashed the car and hit 2 cars in front of him head-on. Rowan was not hurt, and the car only had minor damage. 3. Phantom Drophead. With a 9.0-liter V16 engine under its big hood, Rowan Atkinson's Phantom Drophead was one of a kind. Atkinson asked Rolls-Royce to put a trial engine in the Phantom for his movie Johnny English Reborn. The engine for a project called 100EX was made by Rolls-Royce. It's not clear what kind of car the company wanted to pair the V16 engine with. Yet, news sources say it was made for the Phantom 4-door car and not the Phantom Drophead. No matter what, the V16 engine was never made. Rolls-Royce wouldn't give out its secrets. The company only said how big the engine was and how it was put together. Rowan wanted to push the car to its limits, but he couldn't do it in the movie or on set. Because of this, the V16 Drophead's ability is still secret. 2. Land Rover Defender. The Heritage was a modified Defender that was made to honor the car that took over the world. Some stickers that said HUE 166 were on it to honor the Defender's first license plate. One of the 400 people who bought Heritage was Rowan Atkinson. This diesel engine had 120 horsepower and could only go 90 miles per hour. It could go almost anywhere though, like many other Defenders. That's how far Rowan drove the car before putting it up for sale. Atkinson repaired the car before selling it, even though it was almost brand new. It's still not clear why Rowan decided to give up on this one-of-a-kind Land Rover Defender. 1. 1986 Martin V8 Zagato. It cost a lot of money for Rowan Atkinson to buy one of Aston Martin's 52 Zagato coupes. It was then turned into a race car by Aston Martin Works, which he paid for. The engine was tweaked by Aston Martin's classic car wing, which made it produce 482 up and 412 pound-feet of torque. They also added windows and frames that are lighter, which took 330 pounds off the car. The Zagato crashed during a race in 2001. He had the car for 10 years before he sold it. The customer did not get the V8 Zagato that had been tuned up for Atkinson. Instead, the car was lowered to make it back to the way it was when it was first made. And that's all, guys. I hope you enjoyed my video. Thank you for watching and see you next time.